Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Corner, and welcome to this Christmas holiday winter horror movie review video as part of my December 2022 series, where I'm taking a look at several different Christmas holiday winter related horror movies, watching and reviewing, and then doing a top 10 of my favorite all time at the end of the month of those type of movies. So I mentioned in my intro video that I was going to be doing two movies in this series that I don't have the physical media for. Um, that I was going to watch from Shudder and then do a review on them. And so we're going to open up this month with one of those two for this video, and that is the Advent Calendar from 2020. It was actually released on Shudder in 2021, about a year ago exactly. Actually, I want to say like December 2nd of 2021. So yeah, this was a first time watch for me. So yeah, let's just go ahead and get into it. So the first thing to know about the Advent Calendar, this is a foreign film. This is a French film with some French and German, basically French and German languages spoken. I'd say about 80% French, 20% German. So it is a subtitled movie. So right away, I know there's probably people out there that aren't crazy about. Well, I shouldn't say that. I mean, I'm sure there are people that aren't crazy about subtitled horror movies or movies, period, for that matter. I used to be one of them when I was younger. As I've gotten older, I can appreciate movies, especially thrillers and horror movies, even if they're foreign and I got to read subtitles. And one thing I'll say about this movie, it shouldn't turn you off because it's not a heavy dialogue movie. So, I mean, it's not like you're constantly reading subtitles on the screen in every single scene, every single minute of the movie. So I wouldn't have it scare you away, but I did want to bring it up. That's the first thing to note about the Advent Calendar is um it's a French film, although I think Belgium actually released it. I think it's a Belgium release, but the movie's in French for the most part, subtitled in English, of course. So yeah, 2020 mystery and thriller slash horror movie. The Advent calendar, I figured it'd be a good way to start off this series because Advent, of course, has already started. As somebody like myself that was brought up Catholic, I'm all too familiar with the Advent season, which usually starts the end of November, actually, because you got to have four Sundays of Advent before the day of Christmas, and so I think because Christmas Day is on a Sunday this year, um, that's already going to be the second Sunday here this weekend when I'm filming this, the second Sunday of Advent. So I know about Advent calendars and all that kind of stuff. So I thought, so from that standpoint, this was an interesting movie for me to watch and review to begin with. And then you add on to the fact that I actually heard from quite a few people that this was a good Shutter exclusive from last year. So basically, the Advent calendar is about Eva, or Eve, as being a paraplegic for the last 3 years. When her birthday arrives, she receives a strange advent calendar as a gift. But instead of the traditional sweets, every day reveals something different, sometimes pleasant, but often terrifying, and increasingly bloody. It's going to be a very deadly Christmas this year. So that's kind of the synopsis of the film. So yeah, so Eva is an ex-dancer, is now living in a wheelchair, unable to walk. At some point in the last 3 years, she had an accident, I believe, a car accident that left her paralyzed. Her friend Sophie gives her an old wooden antique advent calendar before Christmas, and she realizes each window contains a surprise that triggers repercussions in her real life. Some of them good, but most of them bad. Now Eva will have to choose between getting rid of the calendar or walking again, even if it causes death around her. So that's really the most interesting part of this movie, or one of the most interesting parts of this movie, is that theme of what would you do to get back your ability to walk? I mean, how many people would have to suffer around you? And the movie really gets into that. I'm not going to give too much away. These reviews, of course, will all be spoiler free, as most of my review series usually are when I'm reviewing movies, especially newer movies like this one. So yeah, that's basically the setup, the premise of the Advent calendar. The director is Patrick Rittermont. The writer's Patrick Rittermont. I'm probably not going to be pronouncing any of these names correctly because they're all foreign directors, actors, actresses. It stars Eugenie Durand, um, Han, Honorine Magnar, and Clement Olivier. Yeah, I'm sure I'm butchering those names, but Eugenie Durand is the main actress, the main character in this movie. And as I said, it was directed and written by Patrick Rittermont. So hopefully I'm not butchering that one. There's some of the names too bad, but so yeah, let's just talk about what I liked about it. I keep looking to hold up a movie for the camera to show you, but I realize, hey, I ain't got one. This is on Shudder. So um, yeah, the Advent calendar was a good way to kick off this month of reviews because, as I said, we're already in the Advent season. So some things I enjoyed about this movie. I will say I did enjoy this movie quite a bit. Um, a lot of people were right when they said that that it was a good movie to watch for the holidays. Now, well, I'll get into that, but starting with the pros, you got to start with the fact that this movie is very unique and creative. I've never seen a movie quite like it. A horror movie's take on sort of the Advent season and having to do with the Advent calendar. Now, I had Advent calendars as a kid growing up, but it wasn't anything like this wooden object one that's in this movie. Mine were more the ones that you hung on the fridge and then you pulled open a little door. Those 25 days of Christmas calendar kind of things, and it had a little saying or it showed a picture or something, or some of them did have a little candy or something for each day, but I never had one of those. So but yeah, the movie, it's just a very unique and creative idea and story for a movie, really interesting, which makes this movie really engaging from start to finish. At least it was for me. I've never seen anything quite like it, nothing that I've seen before. Now, if there's movies out there that exist like this or with this same idea, maybe I just haven't seen it. But I don't know that there is much as it relates to horror and the Advent season, Advent calendar. So somebody can correct me down in the comments if there is one. I'd be interested to hear it. But yeah, I just like the fact that this movie didn't borrow from anything that I'm aware of. It came up with its own very unique and creative ideas, and as a result, it's a very engaging movie. Not necessarily overly horrific or scary, but definitely engaging. You're not bored. At least I wasn't watching this movie, so that's very much a pro. I thought the direction and the performances in this movie are really strong. Definitely was one of the strongest aspects of the movie. The writing and the directing by Patrick Ritterman. He knew the story he wanted to tell, and I thought he executed it really well in terms of how the movie was shot, the characters, how they were written, um, just the overall atmosphere and tension building that takes place in this movie. Very well directed. And then as far as the performances go, really all the performances are good in this movie. Definitely led by Eugenia Durand. If I'm again, I might not be pronouncing that right. She played Eva though in the movie, the main character, the main actress, and she was really good because you had to have somebody in this role, the way the character was written, to really show and sell the emotions, the different emotions that this character experiences throughout the movie, and she did a really phenomenal job with that. I was with her the entire way on this ride because at the beginning you're kind of she's definitely her character is definitely an empathetic one, obviously not just because she's in a wheelchair, but just kind of her life, and there's people around her that aren't um there's people that aren't necessarily that nice, which I don't know how realistic that is. It's probably somewhat realistic. There's some real assholes out there. But just like in terms of treating her with her being paralyzed, like she works for a boss that's just a real douchebag, and there's some other characters that she runs across earlier in the film. So, and even as the film goes on, and she's kind of changing and kind of reaching for more of the opportunity to be able to walk again. The consequences around her be damned. You still kind of follow her, and she still has a certain likeness to her. You understand why she's doing these things, even though they have horrific consequences. So, yeah, I just really bought that character of Eve, played by Eugenia Durand. I thought she did a really good job. And like I said, all the performances are actually really good. The movie looks great. It's really well shot with wonderful cinematography. The use of lighting really adds to the tension of the story. Again, going back to directing, it really worked well for me from the technical aspects. I really like the ending of the movie. That's one thing that has to be brought up. So this is kind of a kind of movie that you follow and it kind of unfolds as it goes and it ratchets up the tension. And then there's an ending, which I'm not going to give it away what it actually is, but basically we're not quite sure the decision that a character makes in the movie. and the movie ends without telling you the decision the character makes. Now, some people might not like that, but I actually really like that sort of ambiguity. I think it works for a movie like this. It doesn't always work when movies try to be more ambiguous than they should be. I mean, some movies just try to be cute and clever with it, and it ends up the movie not doesn't work because of that. But in this case, I think the movie really does work because of the themes and the what the characters are experiencing in this movie. It really makes the viewer question themselves what they would do in that situation. So I think it's a very effective ending by kind of leaving it up in the air and letting the viewer decide. I kind of like when producers and directors do that, and this movie does a really good job with that. So yeah, I really like the ending of this movie, kind of being ambiguous and not predictable at all, allowing the audience to make up their own minds based on the characters that we got to know throughout the movie what we think they did or do. So yeah, that's definitely a pro for me. I like that they didn't use English dubbing for this foreign film. A lot of times, especially back in the day, but even now they still do it where they know that a lot of Americans won't watch foreign films and they're trying to sell it in American markets. And so rather than force Americans to not be overly lazy and actually have to read while they're watching a movie a little bit, they'll dub it over in English. And to me, it's always just so terrible. It's always out of sync. It seems like the voices don't match the actors or actresses on screen at all. I'm just not a fan of English dubbing, so I'm really glad they didn't do that. I was worried that Shudder might try to dub it once it was released last year, once this movie was released on Shudder. But fortunately for me, they didn't. So some other people might feel differently, but that was definitely a pro for me. The movie has great pacing overall. Where it doesn't show every day of the advent calendar, all 20, I think it's 24 days that it goes up to. Um, but it shows you enough. You know, initially it shows you there are these rules that have to be followed by the person that gets the advent calendar. And I'm not going to tell you what they are because, again, the spoiler free review. But basically, you have to follow these rules. Otherwise, instead of the people around you meeting some horrific demises, it might be you that ends up having your own demise. So I felt that they showed enough, even though they didn't show every single day, all 24 days of December, having the little door opened or the key unlocking the doors or whatever, the little compartments. I thought they were it was very effective in that regard, and I thought they gave the viewers enough to go on to sell the idea and build the tension and the thrills. It was very effective for me and how they did that. Great overall atmosphere throughout the movie with effective sound design as it relates to this advent calendar, different sounds that are made as the keys turning and they're unlocking these little doors and you're not quite sure what the hell is going to happen. Great score as well. It really again adds to the suspense of the effectiveness of this movie. The movie has some deeper themes and it has a lot more layers than a typical like Christmas slasher horror movie where somebody's just out with a knife to chop people up, basically, that's dressed like a Santa Claus or something. Not that there's anything wrong with those movies, but this movie definitely has more layers and it definitely has more themes going on underneath the surface. There's some really strong character issues and decisions overall, ideas of faith and and how far what a person would do and how far they would go for a wish that they have for themselves to come true to better their own life. That's the most interesting idea in this movie. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's just very effective having those themes and some pretty thick layers to this movie. And then finally, it's not an overly gory movie, but it is rated R. The movie does have some gore, especially as it's related to an animal at some point towards the end of the movie. Definitely has some creepy moments too. Well, I wouldn't say that it's an overly horrific horror movie. It definitely has effective creepy moments for a good thriller slash horror movie, if that makes sense. So yeah, if you can't tell, I really enjoyed this movie. Those are my pros. Getting into some cons or some things that didn't work as well for me. As I said, it's not really an overly scary horror movie. It's more of a thriller, more of a holiday thriller kind of horror movie than it is a horror movie. Um, the horror is more of the idea of what the one particular character mostly has to deal with, and the characters around him as a result. The horror is more underlying than it is on screen. Also, the look of this, there's a demon or a creature that's related to this advent calendar, and the name of, I think its name is Ike or Ick. Ich, I believe. I think it's a German or a French word. German, I think. Um, it isn't the strongest looking character, the best looking character, or villain, I should say, if you will. It's kind of like this demonic creature that basically ends up showing up and makes sure that nobody interferes with what the person's doing, who's basically got their hands on the advent calendar at the time. They make sure there's no outside interference, basically. But I just didn't feel like the appearance of this creature was quite as scary or as strong as it could have been. Um, I actually thought there was better tension and suspense before the characters revealed, like halfway through the movie. Not to say that the reveal of it completely makes the movie crumble. It certainly doesn't. But that's just one thing I noticed, and it was just a little. I don't know if cheap's the right word. I just don't really care for the look of it or the way they went with it. And then finally, I mean, it's a foreign film, French and some German. So, like I said, their subtitles are included. Though I have to say, one thing that whether it was Shudder or whether it was the movie producers and directors, there are some translations slash quotes slash notes throughout the movie that don't always get subtitled. And so, as if you're an American watching this and you don't understand German or French, you're kind of left in the dark. Like at the very beginning, there's a quote that comes up on screen, and I don't think they translate all of it in subtitles. And then there's some other times too, whether it be a note or a quote or something throughout the movie that gets missed and not subtitle. I don't like I said, I don't know if that's Shudder that missed that or if that was the makers of the movie. That I'm not really sure, but it is one thing that I noticed. But yeah, that's pretty much all I've got, guys. I love this movie, and I would definitely recommend it as a holiday horror movie to check out on Shudder. Again, if you don't have Shudder, it's $6 a month. I, you know, I would definitely sign up for Shudder, and I'm not getting any money from them by saying that. But they have a great selection of thriller and horror movies, and for $6 a month, it's $5.99 I pay each month. It's absolutely worth it to see movies like this, and I do believe this is released also on DVD. I don't know about Blu-ray, but I have seen it on DVD. I would definitely recommend checking it out. Even if you weren't brought up Catholic, even if you're not that familiar with Advent, you really don't need to be. As long as you understand like the gist of it, of what this calendar represents, you'll enjoy the movie. Don't be scared off by the subtitles. Like I said, you don't have to read that much in this movie. It's not a heavy dialogue kind of movie where they have to subtitle a lot of it. It's more through the characters' expressions, through the music, through the direction, and how the movie's shot, and just the overall tension and scares in the movie. So, yeah, definitely check out the Advent calendar from 2020. It is up on Shudder right now, currently. So, if you want to sign up for Shudder this month, definitely check it out. The Advent calendar. I'm going to give this movie an 8 out of 10 as far as the rating goes for me. I really enjoyed it. I might get it on DVD, although probably not going to rush out to do it. As long as it's on Shudder, that's probably good enough for me right now. But I could definitely see getting this on DVD. I really like the movie, and I would recommend it to anybody out there that wants to check out a good holiday horror movie. So I hope you enjoyed this review. Definitely check out the Advent calendar on Shudder or on DVD if you can find it. Thank you for watching this review. Please like this video and hit the little notification bell down below so you don't miss any of my upcoming reviews for this series. And please make sure to subscribe to my channel down below so you don't miss any of my great horror content. Not just the rest of this series, but what I have coming up the first 4 or 5 months of 2023, which I already have planned out for you guys. Some great content there. Everything from movies to TV shows, all horror related. So thank you for watching this review. Happy December, everybody. Hope you're doing well and stay scared. Bye.